Hi, my name is Will, and welcome to the Distorted Transmission for today. I'm talking to Wellington-based band Empyrvore. How are you guys?
Yeah, good. How are you?
First of all, who had COVID last week?
That was me. Put a spanner in the works, but
All better?
yeah, all better now.
Cool. All right, first off is introductions. Who's in the band and what do they do?
Cool. So the band's just me and Jared. We met about 10 years ago at a powerlifting gym down in Wellington called Powerhouse Gym, and pretty quickly discovered he's the only other guy there that listened to black metal. So we sort of got chatting a while later and started having some jams, just casually. And then eventually came up with the idea of doing a two-piece black metal band. Back then, I think our main influences were probably like Dissection, would it be Mgwa, and a few others like that. Um, and then after that, I moved to Hamilton, where I am at the moment. So it became a bit of a tricky remote band situation. So it was quite a lot of sort of experimenting and things like that to figure out sort of good recording processes and how to write when we're no longer in the same city. Um, so it was a good learning experience. Our first album, the drums were actually all just done on a computer program because I didn't even have a drum kit at the time to do it on. And so it was basically like Jared would write some riffs on his end, I would write some drums to it and give opinions on how the riffs go and would sort of figure out together how to put them together. And then when I got a electric drum kit a few years ago, it made it way easier. And that's what we did for the Nadir Empyrean album.
It's your second release, as you just mentioned. You did one previous to that. The first being back in 2020, a somewhat rawer four-track EP called The Devourer of Beauty. Were you at all versed in the art of recording and production, or did you have to literally start from sort of first principles and improve as you went? I guess that'd be up to Jared.
Yep.
So the answer is no. I knew virtually nothing about music production beyond what I'd seen from having been in the studio with my previous band, Eight Eyed Orchid, which was a prog band. I understood the basics of, you would record a single track and then you would, if you were doing a guitar recording, then you record a second guitar track, you pan them left and right. So I understood some of the basics at a very fundamental level, but not much beyond that. So when we came to do the Devourer Beauty, I recorded the guitars and bass here at home using my Helix, so an amp simulator, obviously. Ran all those tracks into a session of Pro Tools, and then when it was ready, mixed it to the best of my very limited abilities at the time, in terms of adding the drums and adding all the synths and all the vocals. Once we had that package ready, then we took it to a professional engineer to actually mix it. And I think they did the best that they could with what they had, but the tracks were reasonably raw, and so Mike's mentioned that he used the drum program. I was using tones that were, very much kind of old school black metal, where they're very raspy. Um, the vocals were recorded on a very cheap microphone. So based on what we had, the gear that we had at the time, and the understanding that we had about what a good guitar tone sounds like, or how to mix guitars and drums and everything else like that, it was kind of the best that we could do. But yeah, we spent a lot of time, or I spent a lot of time researching and understanding and upskilling about how to, the basics of a really good recording. So how to even use a different DAW, because I found Pro Tools really difficult to work with some of the more complicated stuff that I wanted to do. And then how to get a good guitar sound, how many layers you wanted to do in order to kind of make it as thick as you wanted. The balance of how to use synths to like emphasize certain sections rather than being through every part of every riff, stuff like that. So yeah, we started off with knowing very, very little, but it was a very conscious effort to upskill in order to have that kind of DIY aesthetic that we wanted to have, where we did everything by ourselves.
It's kind of interesting to think about that concept because black metal itself, typically or traditionally, it's a very sort of a raw, kind of a low fidelity, raspy, raw sound, and yet there is a certain way to capture that well, which seems odd, but yeah. So, how long did it actually take you to sort of, what's the word, sort of hone in on the sound that you wanted and the way to capture it?
Yeah, I'd always had a bit of a sound in my head of what I wanted to achieve, and we didn't quite get there on Devourer Beauty, just because there was in my head it's my musical background is that I started off by learning classical piano, and so when you're playing that, you end up in a situation where one person is doing, the harmony and the melody sometimes and the bass line and everything else, and that's how I started to hear the orchestrations that I wanted in my head, with all kinds of different layers and stuff like that. But I couldn't quite get it right. So knowing that I could do better and knowing that we could get a closer sound if I learned how to do some of this stuff better was one of the real driving forces for me to learn how to do it. I mean, the part of, it's really attractive to be able to kind of come in and to look at a product and go, for better or worse, this was exactly what we wanted to do, right? So this entire thing was done by the two of us. um, like it or not, this was just us. There was no one else involved in this. This is a really pure expression of our artistic integrity in that respect. This is what we wanted to do and this is what we did. So it was a long time to upskill and to understand all those different processes and to learn to use a DAW and to mix and master and everything. But we are really proud of how it turned out, and in no small measure because we did it all ourselves.
If you would like some reassurance, I did like it, and it did sound good. So if that's worth anything,
Yeah, cheers.
yeah, well done. Jared, you mentioned that you're in a prog band before, but Michael, you didn't get a chance to weigh in on that. Were you in bands before?
Yeah, I've been in a few, not actually for a long time. The band before that I was in was of Blackest Oceans from Wellington. There was a sort of progressive metalcore band there. So I was in that band for about a year. Didn't record anything with them, but just did sort of a few gigs and stuff. And then before that, it was sort of basically high school bands and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I've always jammed metal pretty much since I've started playing drums. So
What did you decide to land on a black metal band over, I don't know, a prog band or?
black metal is definitely my favorite metal subgenre. And I do just love how it's basically just pure raw artistic expression with no pretentiousness or anything like that. It's just, yeah, I just really like the genre. And then just the idea of doing a two-piece band with Jared, it just seemed like such an easy thing to do. Like any decision we make in the band, we just run it between us. And if the other person's happy, it's good to go.
When we were kicking ideas around for how we were going to do this, a lot of what really inspired us to get into music and produce music was being on a similar wavelength about social frustrations. And so a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the music that we make is to express a kind of like a catharsis almost, in terms of getting to, in my case, literally scream into a microphone about things that anger us, that wind us up, that make us passionate about vocalizing our thoughts and expressions, right? So black metal is obviously, that's the quintessential genre where you go if you have a bit of a misanthropic bent, and that was definitely part of the equation for us as well. Like we do love other genres, but in terms of the music that's closest to our hearts, it was definitely black metal.
Right, well, obviously the album's just dropped and it's probably early days to discuss another album, but are you thinking along those lines? Will Empyrvore continue?
Yep, yeah. We pretty much as soon as we finished the album, we had probably sort of a few weeks off to just chill out and relax because the last stretch of doing it was pretty grueling. But yeah, we pretty much just jumped right back into it. We've I'd say for the last probably year, we've had like really good consistency where both of us are practicing and recording stuff constantly. So it just made it really easy to get straight back into it. And so obviously won't say too much, but we've already produced quite a lot of riffs that we're happy with and sort of the outlines of a few songs and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely back in sort of full swing. One thing that's a bit different with the new album we're working on too, because my main instrument's drums, but I play a bit of guitar. So we're trying to do more of a, I guess, split effort on it where I'll be doing some of the guitars for this album, just so it's sort of a, I don't know, kind of makes it, I guess, a half and half type project.
Are your sort of guitar skills up to spec though?
Definitely wouldn't be as good as Jared's, but I'd say for the sort of tremolo picking sort of stuff and the easier riffs, yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, there was a mention of a little factoid that one of the guitars used on the recording was used by Opeth on their earlier recordings. Do you have that guitar with you there by any chance? You do?
I actually do. Here's one I prepared earlier. So this is, sorry, the lighting's not great. So this is a 1993 PRS Custom 24. It's got a lovely one-piece. Yeah, again, you can't really see it because of the lighting, but it's got a one-piece flame maple top, and all of the other cool things that make a PRS great. So I've been a big Opeth nerd for a very long time, and you might hear some of those influences, Nadir Imperium, and there's even like an entire instrumental clean track which uses this guitar. Um, so I've watched a lot of Opeth content over the years, and they put out some studio videos that were like a old found footage kind of thing that have been recently released on YouTube with the sessions for Deliverance and Damnation. Their split album, well, not really a split album, but they're the two albums that they released at the same time a number of years back. Um, and I've been looking for a PRS for a number of years because the other guitar that was the bulk of most of the tracks on the EP is a Gibson Les Paul Custom, which is a fantastic guitar, but the Les Paul is a little bit idiosyncratic in terms of like it's got a shorter scale length. It's got some other things that make it sound awesome, but not particularly well suited to really low tunings and stuff like that. So, and a Custom 24 is not a whole lot longer scale length wise, but it had some other accoutrements that I thought would make it a better sounding guitar for some of what we do. So I was on the hunt for a Custom 24 anyway. I had a few shortlisted on Reverb that I was looking at buying. And while I'm flicking back and forth between them, kind of going, oh, this one's really good, this one's a bit beat up, but it's a bit cheaper, whatever. I had the Opeth studio video on in the background. And I was looking at one of the guitars that I had shortlisted, and I'm looking at this video and going back and forth, going, hang on, that's either a huge coincidence or it looks like it's actually the same guitar. And if you know PRSs, you'll know that normally they have the top is, so the body of the guitar is made of mahogany or ash or something, and the top is a thin, like an inch thick layer of maple. And normally what they'll do is they will mask off the edges of the guitar. And so when they're painting it, the masking tape stays on and then they pull the tape off afterwards. And so you get a really cool binding effect, right, of whatever the top wood is. So normally PRS guitars have that, and this one didn't. It's also a one-piece top, which is unusual for PRS. And between all those kind of unusual facets of it and the wood grain of it, which you can see more clearly if I had the lights on, it made it look exactly the same as this one from these videos. So as far as I can tell, it's the same guitar. And I can chuck up some high-res images if your listeners are interested. It's the right provenance, the serial number and some of the features on it date it to be the right kind of period as well. Being an earlier PRS, and you can see like the neck heel is just a little bit of a different shape and stuff like that. So it's not like a full forensic examination of these two guitars, but as far as I can see, it is the same one.
I thought maybe it might have come with some sort of certificate of authenticity or something along those lines.
No, sadly not. I don't think the person who was selling it realized that because it was a guitar seller, like rather than an individual person. I don't think they knew, or I think they would have been asking for a premium for it.
Last question I always ask bands: is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview?
I guess the only thing I will add is so I'm moving down to Wellington in 2 weeks, so it's going to make the whole band process way easier. And we haven't really 100% confirmed anything, but we're trying to figure out the logistics of potentially doing gigs. Just because obviously there's only two of us and our songs have like tons of tracks. So whether, we have a backing track or how we'd go about that, something we're pretty keen to get to figure out, because we would love to gig if we can, but we also want it to look authentic and yeah.
All right, cool. Jared?
Yeah, so for us, it's really important that the music tells a story. So we are the kind of people, sorry, lights enough. We're the kind of people who don't just want to have cool riffs. We actually want to say something with our music. So for us, it was really important to have the lyrics that were, published, but also could be understood. So the kind of vocals that I like to do are not ones where it's just like the very low kind of, corpse grinder style ones where it's like at that pitch where you can't actually hear the enunciated words. It's important to us we took the time to form a band because we have something to say, and so it's important to us to be able to have that conversation with the audience. So that's part of the reason that we pick the genre that we do and have the styles that we've got in there. It's also important to us to push the envelope a little bit and not just repeat the everything else that other black metal bands have done better than us. So that's part of the reason we don't just go for that really raw approach, because we weren't living in Sweden in 1992 and it wouldn't be super authentic for us to try and pretend that we were. We also try and tell a story and pose questions to the listeners, right? So a lot of the lyrical things and themes that you will hear coming through are not, here is what I think you should think to. It is, here is the situation, here's some things that you should think about. Or one of the songs on which is quite doom metal influence in some ways is called To Bind the Wounds. And the whole point of it is, rather than just kind of picking up on the typical black metal nihilism and misanthropy, it's saying, yes, you can acknowledge that things are terrible, but if you just do that, then what you are doing is essentially bringing a little bit more misery into the world. So so it's fine to complain because it's, these are valid things to be frustrated about, but what are you going to do to fix the situation? Right. So rather than just complaining, how will you actually improve things? So it's not necessarily full social conscious black metal because that's not what we're about. But for us, it's important to be posing questions and to be kind of a little bit more cerebral than just gore grind death metal or anything or something like that. Not that I have a problem with that. I do love my Cannibal Corpse, but
or the
for us,
sort of the kind of anti-human kind of trope that a lot of black metal is that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks very much. It was really nice chatting with you guys. You're a lovely bunch of guys to chat to. Excellent interview.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the opportunity to come on your show and talk about our stuff. I appreciate it.
Say goodbye to everyone. Goodbye, everybody.
Sweet. See you later.
Catch you later.
Thanks for watching.